we've had a long-standing, I'm a Oh Holy Night and you're a Silent Night fan.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and you
The
had a
two
Silent Note,
genders.
as the two genders, Silent and Holy. You, as a woman, Silent.
As a
Speaking
man,
of Catholicism,
inherently
and
holy. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
So we're raw dogging this.
God,
It's been
even
a,
though I knew it was coming, I almost did a spit take.
it's been
Your
a
inflection was different, so it made it fresh.
it's been a crazy week for me. I just got
Mhm.
back from an early holiday visit. I know this episode will be coming out almost like Christmas Eve-ish.
Mhm.
So, but this is early December. I had my work holiday party. It's actually
One of many.
one of many. Today is actually the Feast of the Immaculate Conception. So when we're recording
Uh,
it, so the day the Virgin Mary was conceived. So that's a
wait,
holiday.
wait.
Yeah.
When she was conceived or when
Yes. The
she
Immaculate Conception.
conceived?
No, that is the Annunciation, which is on March 25th, 9 months before Christmas, the vernal equinox.
So she, but it's called the Immaculate Conception.
Because she had a special conception. Because she
I'm learning Christian lore.
we're gonna be it's a Christmas special. We're gonna touch on some Christian lore. So wow, before we even introduce ourselves, let me explain the Immaculate Conception. It's a common misnomer, and you will be smarter whether or not you're religious, whatever, you'll be smarter for knowing this. So because she was to conceive the physical form, this is actually will be relevant later. The physical form of Jesus in her body, she needed to be free of original sin, which is the sin that
Right.
Adam and Eve got, and we all inherit from them. That's what makes us have inclinations to selfishness and sin. That's like the dark half. Like we're in the
Mm-hmm.
image of God as the light half, the original sin is the dark half. So it's like in order for her to conceive Jesus and have him be sinless, she needed to be preserved from sin. So God did a time thing where he took Jesus's salvation from ahead of time. He like, because he's outside of time, he like plucked it from the future and applied it to her during conception. So she didn't get original sin. So she didn't have inclinations to be sinful.
Is this a Catholic thing or is this an all Christian thing, or do you
This
not
is a
know?
Catholic thing specifically.
Okay,
I
because I
think
was
there's a
gonna say, I was
version
like,
of it in the Orthodox churches, like Eastern Orthodox, but it
right.
wasn't like it was an idea that was around and it was celebrated in the Middle Ages, which I actually, in last year's collection of holidays, when I talk about December holidays, I included this, but I don't think it was until like it was later when they were like, okay, we're writing this down, this is official, but it had been in practice for a while.
Whoa, that's
Just,
crazy.
yeah. So
Okay,
hi, I'm Cullen.
and I'm Hannah.
And we go crazy when we don't have guests.
Yeah.
Happy holidays. We've been having a crazy December so far, but looking forward to some rest.
Mm-hmm.
I got
Um.
water in a snowman mug.
Oh, okay. I actually have hot chocolate this time in
Ah,
my Ohio mug.
mm,
Um, for those who are just listening, or for those who are watching and wondering, why the fuck is her scarf so chunky? I time traveled back. Like God, I went and plucked something out of time. I plucked a style out of 2013 college era, a chunky scarf and a flannel. I'm looking very much like I'm about to go to one of my English classes.
yes.
I did not read the text I was supposed to for today,
Never,
but I am
same.
going to bullshit my way through it.
Yes, and honestly, professors love it. Uh, Also, this sweater lights up.
Okay, so what is it? Is it like a Christmas tree?
It's a unicorn.
It's not at all what I thought. Wow, it's a vomiting unicorn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's
Love it.
reminding me that my friend, I forgot to wish the friend who got me this sweater a happy birthday.
Wow.
Sorry, Diana. It's Rafa's best friend, and she got this for me.
Happy birthday or belated birthday
Happy
at this
belated
point.
by like a couple days, I think. Okay.
Well, by the time this comes out,
Be
it'll
like a,
be a
yeah,
month.
Christmas, holidays, solstice.
I mean, I think it's pretty safe to say Christmas for
We
these
are,
two
yeah, we
things
are very
because
specifically talking about Christmas.
and they are about specifically versions of Christmas.
Yes.
So
But happy holidays for whatever holiday you celebrate. I believe Hanukkah is beginning as we record.
I think so,
Shout out to the
right? That makes sense.
Maccabees. Yeah. They're the
Yeah,
people that did the Hanukkah menorah in the story. And like we're fighting the ancient Greeks. So just want to clarify that's what I'm referring to.
cool.
Hannah, what's your favorite Christmas song? Famous
Hmm.
Christmas music lover.
Yeah, famous Christmas music lover. Well, if anyone is a Glee booty out there listening, you already know this. It's Christmas wrapping by the waitresses slash Glee cast because the Glee cast version is actually better. Can't believe I just said that, but I'm pretty sure I said it before.
Yeah.
That is my favorite Christmas song, but I did find myself humming Silent Night in the shower. And
Oh,
I found
because
myself singing along to some of the songs in these movies
yeah.
that we're going to talk about because it's deep in my consciousness, these songs, which is crazy. I haven't
Yeah,
seen so
I
many
forgot
before.
how much I knew all these songs.
Yes. I was
Uh
humming along. I was like, huh, look at that.
Now, speaking of, we've had a long-standing I'm a Oh Holy Night and you're a Silent Night fan.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, and you
The
had a
two
silent note
genders.
as the two genders, silent and holy. And you as a woman, silent.
As a
Speaking
man,
of Catholicism
inherently
and
holy. Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
So you had a solo of Silent Night for choir that was cut, and that's why you became an
Uh-huh.
atheist.
That's exactly why I became an atheist.
That is
The
not
only reason
the
it wasn't
only
because I was
reason.
poking loopholes in my pastor's sermons or anything like that.
No.
You know.
That is I love making up lore about people, like their fictional characters, and being like, oh, this is just an easier narrative moment, you know.
Exactly, exactly.
No complexity. Yeah. Okay, so my favorite, I'm a big fan of the Killers' Christmas music. Obviously, we both love Underneath the Tree, Kelly Clarkson. My favorite
Absolutely.
I like Oh Holy Night and What Child Is This for like the
Churchy ones.
churchy ones. David Archuleta, one of my top 5 Spotify artists this year, along with the Glee cast, unfortunately,
Mm,
is Magic. He did that with Lindsey Sterling and Christmas Every
okay.
Day. And I feel like I was doing this because there's a specific song I wanted to say,
Well, I
and
also
it's
heard
escaped my brain.
Extraordinary Merry Christmas.
I do love that Glee
It
cast
is
song.
actually really good. I
That's a
think
good
I said
one.
that on the Christmas episode
And I
that it
nominated
appeared
that for
in.
best Christmas song
Yeah.
for the Glee
I'm
Keys.
gonna be honest, can't remember. And I heard it and I was like jamming. But also there's a I don't know if like she's still canceled or what's going on with Ariana Grande, but
Santa Tell Me.
I think that's what it's called.
Santa Tell
It's
Me
new.
if you're really there. That one?
Yeah, it's a bop. I like it. I keep hearing
Yeah,
it in the store and I was like in the dressing room, like, okay, I like this.
it's fun. It is
Yeah.
not new.
Santa Baby, again, Glee class version. Excellent. But
Which one?
also
Eartha Kitt.
Eartha Kitt, classic.
Uh,
So good.
I love my favorite sad one.
Madonna's version, also good.
My favorite sad Christmas song, which also is my favorite song sung by Judy Garland that inspires a little girl to punch a snowman. And that is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas.
That's interesting. That seems like a very specific
Yeah, but it is the best.
category.
It is. It is the winner of that category.
Mm.
Have you ever seen Meet Me in St. Louis?
No, I've seen like parts of it.
Well, Judy Garland sings that to her sister because they're sad. And it's like, wow, it makes her even more sad. And she punches a snowman.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Okay.
like destroys a bunch of stuff.
Mm.
That's also where the trolley song. not Glee cast
Yes.
version is from. Yeah.
Non-Glee cast version.
All right. So that's just, I mean, we could, oh, you know what? We're going to save some questions about traditions
Okay.
to as we get to them in the lore.
Sounds great.
Because we've been doing a lot of upfront conversation. And
Yeah.
sometimes that drives me crazy when I listen to podcasts. I think if you're listening to this one, you listened to us before. So like you're
You
ready.
you expect
But
it. I
yeah.
think we average about 15-20 minutes of before we hop into lore.
Yeah. And
I think we're right on
sometimes,
track.
yeah, sometimes I think
Because I usually
let's
cut
speed it
some of
up.
it.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank
The
you.
last thing I do have to say is I think I ended up cutting it from one of the episodes that we talked about it, but my family does sing Christmas carols on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And because of our Thanksgiving was a little wonky this year, we ended up almost forgetting to do that. And we sang one 5 minutes before me and my part of the family left. So we sang Jingle Bells. Yeah.
Jingle bells. Have we've both gone caroling with church people, right? I think that's both
Oh,
a shared
hell
experience.
yeah.
I mean, caroling is, I think it's, even when you're surprising people, I think it's nice.
I haven't done it in a really, I
Yeah, I
mean,
haven't done it. I
since
can't
high
imagine
school.
doing that in Los Angeles, but also in high school, I did carol with like when I was in It's a Wonderful Life, one of my favorite Christmas movies. Have you ever wondered what it would be like if one of your favorite Christmas songs was just they made a whole movie out of that?
No.
Rankin and Bass was like, what if a Christmas song was just a whole ass movie?
Yeah.
And so they did the Rankin Bass holiday made for TV special, stop motion. You know, we've
Mm-hmm.
met this company before on our fantastical journey.
We did.
Speaking of my unicorn sweater, The Last Unicorn.
Oh,
Yes. And Peter S. Beagle was nervous because he's like, I don't know if I love those specials. But
these predate that for sure.
yeah,
I
because
like
that
at
was,
least 10 years.
yeah.
Wow.
So these movies have been around. There's a million different versions because we had an old copy of the VHS. And
Mm.
then we had this thing called Advent Buddies where we would, for Advent, the pre-Christmas season in some forms of Christianity, we would have a family buddy that we would like do little nice things for, or my mom would get like a little thing of like treats and small toys and candy, and we could like leave it for them to like surprise them because we're kids. It's not like we had the money to go buy something for our sibling ourselves.
It's kind of like a secret Santa, but
Yeah.
did they know it was you or was it a
No.
secret? Okay, yeah.
I
So it
mean,
was like
people knew
we definitely
if
did that at church. It
yeah.
was like the basically like each of the couple Sundays before Christmas, we would, hide it
Mhm.
somewhere for that person. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people who had me would know because I was a small child and I was so excited, and you would hear me running down the hall, like to like drop something out and like running back. Uh, yeah, the best was one time I left chocolates under my brother's pillow, and he came back from hockey practice and fell asleep, and then wondered why there was sticky brown stuff on his hand. He was
Oh.
asleep. But yeah. One time we did get the Rankin Bass holiday specials. They were different than the old VHSs we had. But
Mm.
my sister was given Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. My brother was given Santa Claus is Coming to Town, and I was giving Little Drummer Boy, which
I was gonna say
ended up I that terrified me, that movie. We're not talking about
I
that one today, but
no, I did not watch it. So I ended up watching these on a unknown platform. And it has like vintage
ads.
commercials.
Vintage commercials. I
It
watched that there too. Yeah.
and that was wonderful. I watched all the ads because it was just like a little dash of the past. It was very
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah, I would like
But
have
I
them
skipped
play
over
and
Little
go to the
Drummer Boy.
bathroom and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
felt like watching it on
Um,
TV. Yeah.
it
You
was
skipped
really
over a
cute.
Little Drummer Boy. Little Drummer Boy.
I had seen a little bit of the animation as I was scrolling past. I was like, "Ooh, that looks scary."
Well, his family's murdered by bandits at the beginning. The Little Drummer Boy's parents. And they have
That's not in the song.
there's a shot of the bandits like smiling over their burning house where you assume his parents' dead bodies are being burned. And that really seared itself into my brain as a child. And so I was
Mm,
scared of that man coming to get me and burn down my family's house and kill my parents.
yikes! Yeah, I get that.
Because I don't think the bandits were ever stopped, because that's just the ancient world,
Right.
you know. Um,
Bandits everywhere.
It's everywhere. But yeah, we're talking about the two, what I consider probably the two biggest and most popular, other than there's the animated Frosty the Snowman,
Right. Yeah.
which I did enjoy as a kid. But we have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Origin
Mhm.
stories of two of Christmas's most famous mascots.
Yeah.
You know, one aged much better than the other, I would say.
And one of them is a retcon of a character in the other.
True.
I was like, I don't think this is the exact same Santa.
No, those are two different Santas.
Very, very different. And how does he become this one? They got to be in two separate universes.
Two separate universes. Yeah, because yeah, the North Pole is like fascist in Rudolph. I mean, it's wild. So the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, 1964 Christmas animated special. It aired first on December 6th on NBC.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the other one we're talking about, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, that came out in 1970. Narrated by Fred Astaire. It stars like Mickey Rooney is the big name
Yeah.
as
Well, Fred
Santa Claus.
Astaire is the other big name.
Yeah. It was aired December 13th.
Mm.
So that's interesting because they're both two Christmas related holidays. December 6th is the Feast of St. Nicholas.
Mm.
And December 13th is the Feast of St. Lucy, Santa Lucia Day, which is big in some Scandinavian countries. It's, you know, Kirsten, the American Girl doll?
Nope.
No. Okay. Well, she was Swedish, and so her holiday outfit, she had like a candle. She wears like candles on her head, like a wreath of candles,
Uh-huh.
lit candles. And that's Santa Lucia Day because her name means light. Her eyeballs were either plucked out by herself or somebody else because they were pretty.
Damn.
And people celebrate her on that solstice, and the girls wear the hats and sing. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. But did you ever do St. Nicholas Day as a kid? This
I
is
didn't
our
do any
segue
saint
into the
day
lore.
because as a Methodist,
Yeah.
I don't think we really paid attention to saints at all. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, those crazy Catholics,
That's
you know.
crazy Catholics with our large cast of characters.
Your CCU, Catholic Cinematic Universe.
It's big.
It's huge.
Yeah, we just
And
talked about one random girl who just got like murdered, and she has a
yeah,
whole
and I'm like,
day.
and you know quite a bit about her, at least a lot more than I do.
Yeah,
Yeah. I probably couldn't even I could name five, but it's just
probably no more
yeah.
than you think you do.
But I'd be naming people and I'm like, I'm pretty sure these apostles were also saints. So there we go.
Yeah, apostles are saints. Yeah.
So there you go. I would have however many apostles, that's
Mary
about it.
Magdalene.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are
Anyway.
famous Dan Brownie. Yeah.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
uh so
Dan Brownie.
Dan,
Hate that.
I keep wanting to check my notes, but I don't have any. It's all up in my head today. So
You got this.
Saint Nicholas was a real man. We mentioned him in the Night Before Christmas episode last week. So he was a bishop in Turkey during ancient Rome. He was persecuted under Emperor Diocletian, the Diocletian persecutions, because they found there's multiple sets of bones claimed to be Saint Nicholas. Some were stolen by Italians, there's some in Turkey. And
Oh,
someone did facial
interesting.
reconstruction, and he has a broken nose, and they think it could be because of Diocletian. But he was also known to throw a punch. He famously, after Christianity was now legal, one of the councils, I think it was the Council of Nicaea, he punched Arius or Arian, the founder of the movement of Arianism.
Not
Because
Nazis.
not Nazis, no, Arian,
Mm.
which is the belief that Jesus, I believe, was that. So, oh gosh, Catholic lore. So in Christianity or in Catholic, the official thing is Jesus is fully God and fully man. Now, technically, if you ask your average Republican evangelical, they no longer believe this. So I don't really know what their religion is according to Pew statistics. But this was core. This was people were debating this, and this was established as that is what it means to be Christian. And Arians believed that Jesus was. I think that Jesus was fully man. I did not have time to delve into Arianism. I was like, let me focus on the Santa stuff. But that is, they denied the thing that Jesus was God and man. He was just one, and I believe it was man. And they were like, no, 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 because yes, 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 we bring up the Virgin Mary. When they said, no, you're wrong, this was this in Ephesus, which is where they once had a famous temple to the Virgin Goddess Diana, one of the seven wonders of the world. Then people started chanting Theotokos, like God bearer, because they loved Virgin Mary there, and this heresy was trying to like downplay her. So when the council was decided, people were like, yes, yes, yes. I could be mixing up two different ancient heresies, but the main thing we need to take away is St. Nicholas was willing to punch for his beliefs. And he, as we mentioned last time, he gave money to this family. There were three daughters. They were going to be prostitutes because they didn't have any money for a dowry. And he dropped money down their ceiling.
Nice.
Or their chimney. And so now they could get married. And then he also, according to one story, he stopped by an inn where three children had been murdered and pickled. And he resurrected them.
Pickled.
Yeah, they were put in like jars of brine. So their bodies were preserved, and he was like, I'm gonna resurrect these kids.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how St. Nicholas became the patron saint of children.
Gotcha.
Patron saint of seafarers, patron saint of thieves. He's huge in Greek Orthodox and Eastern Orthodox traditions. And in some Russian stories, in Slavic stories, he was absorbed, like they just took their myths of different gods and just replaced them with saints. So like the crafty agricultural deity became Saint Nicholas, and then like the angry, fiery, like sky god became the prophet Elijah. So then there are stories of like Nicholas and Elijah fighting over who gets more churches. So it's like very obviously like, so they just like, it's just a reskinned, it's like a fanfic where you file off the names. So it's a filed off serial number. So he was a big one. He was a big popular saint. And people on December 6th would leave shoes under their chimney for a toy to be placed. Children specifically would leave. And this was something I did. It was like a Christmas thing, and this is something so there's
Did you get gifts?
Yeah, just a small gift.
Nice.
And that's what my husband, he's from Jalisco, that's what they do on Three Kings Day, January 6th.
Oh, okay.
That the three kings drop gifts in your shoe, and then like in Mexico City, January 6th is the primary gift giving a holiday.
Interesting.
And so that's the thing, is that different cultures have different gift givers. But St. Nicholas became popular in like the Dutch community as someone who gave gifts to children. And that tradition spread, right? But then we have the Reformation, right? The Methodists show up.
Hi.
Hey. But Martin Luther was like, this is too much attention on Santa Claus. Or Sinterklaas, St. Nicholas. Let's do it on Christmas, and Jesus will bring you gifts. And then they had Chris Kindle.
My God.
Chris Kindle, something like a little like Chris Kringle. Like an angelic baby Jesus that would bring you gifts. But then he was not as good at punishing you for being naughty because he's a sweet little baby. So that's how like Krampus and other little demons or mean people named Nicholas became popular. Yes.
You're talking to me or okay, yeah. So it's really funny because when this was right after we became Christian, when I was probably about 4-ish. That's basically when I stopped believing in Santa Claus, because when we joined the church, they're like, don't put emphasis on Santa Claus because Santa Claus isn't real. So that's what I was told.
Well,
and instead, for a couple years,
somebody, so he is real.
Baby Jesus would bring me gifts.
Yeah.
And I still to this day, I thought, how ridiculous that my mother did that. But apparently There's some legit lore behind
There's
it.
some
So you know
legit lore.
what? I'm done poking fun at that because all right, I get it.
Yeah, so then it's the Saint Nicholas character, so they have the demons who are going to punish you like the Krampus style because Saint Nicholas could be stern and rewarding, but baby Jesus, you didn't want him to be like punishing naughty kids. So they made a demon to do that. And then
Right.
in other countries like, England, France, Russia, they just kind of like denominational version of you have Father Christmas.
Yeah.
You have Papa Noel. I met him at Epcot, or saw him at Epcot.
Where and your grandfather famously helped build Epcot.
That yes. So in the World Showcase in France, where I first met the Princess Aurora, I also saw Papa Noel. And then or Père Noel. Père Noel. Oh my gosh, 4 semesters of French. I'm an idiot. DBU alum here. And then Russia had Grandfather Frost. And then, but then you have a history of governments getting involved, churches getting involved.
Never a good idea.
So we get the Puritans because we don't want any of that. But then you have Dutch settlers in the New World, like New Amsterdam. They're bringing Sinterklaas because even though they became Protestant, they're like, we like Saint Nicholas. We're just keeping that. So because Christmas as a celebration sometimes was outside of official church and government things, it was like a rowdy, wild party. And that definitely regained prominence with the overthrow of my personal enemy, fucking loser Oliver Cromwell, and the restoration of the British monarchy. Wow, Cromwell, you suck so hard. I'm rooting for the British monarchy over you. But the descendants of Mary Queen of Scots, the Star of CW's reign, they're back on the throne, and they love a Christmas time. So we get this resurgence of Father Christmas, Christmas celebrations, and that kind of leaks over into the Americas as all these cultures are mixing. In Russia, in the Soviet era, they tried to get rid of Grandfather Frost, or they're to move him from Christmas to New Year's, which Orthodox churches use a different calendar. So Christmas is on like in early January for them.
Yeah.
So it's a little less of a stretch, because they were trying to secularize Grandfather Frost. And that didn't work.
The scarf is off.
Let it go.
Let it go. Sorry. Oh my gosh. Wrong movie.
But people did not. People tried to cancel the holidays, as we talked about, like with Halloween. People have been trying to cancel Christmas.
So we're saying the war on Christmas began long ago.
Long ago.
Wow.
And people were like, no, thank you. We like this. Just kind of like with Halloween, but people even more strongly with Christmas. So then you get Sinterklaas and Chris Kindle kind of combining in the New World. And then you get Santa Claus, and that was popularized with the poem "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." L. Frank Baum, the author of The Wizard of Oz, wrote a book about Santa Claus that's wild, insane, has nothing to do with any of our lore now. But that just shows you how recently that lore has been like established, like any kind of canon. Santa Claus used to in the Netherlands, the Dutchlands in the Netherlands, he had helpers. They were servants or slaves or people in blackface. With a name that was basically equivalent to Black Pete.
Oof.
And then for whatever reason, honestly, I didn't even figure out why, but Louisa May Alcott, the woman who made Timothée Chalamet,
yes.
yes. The writer of Little Women, she wrote a book called The Christmas Elves.
Huh.
And then elves have now worked in Santa's workshop, and this just was popularized. We talked about elves being like Nordic vague mythical creatures that there are dark elves who made crafts underground, and you had the light elves who were helpful and kind and served Freyr, the big dick energy god of like summertime. And so this kind of fit. They're like, in northern Scandinavia, uh elves, sure, and we all just kind of picked it up. It was established now that Santa had reindeer, though those reindeer, they're girl bosses because male reindeer actually shed their antlers in the winter.
Yes.
Female reindeer, yeah. This that will not be acknowledged in these movies at all.
No, it's very much the opposite.
It's a reindeer
So
patriarchy,
all of the
yeah.
reindeer, regardless of sex, have the antlers. I think
But
I
the
called them horns in my notes because I could not think of the word. But then in the winter, the bucks
yeah,
shed. Interesting. Yeah.
yeah. So that's some reindeer lore. I'm trying to think. Okay, so Santa, and then Santa, this new American Santa, which I did not know this. He did not get his red cloak from Coke, a cola, and their advertisements. It was, I mean, he wore red vestments in a lot of European art, and then that was popular. It wasn't officially established, but in the 1800s, drawings as a start to establish a look for Santa, and that included a red cloak or red, yeah.
Ooh, so we don't really know the origin.
Yeah, it's just kind of people did a cartoon and there people were like, that slaps. And then it just became popular. It was just like an
Hmm.
iconic look was unveiled and people stuck with it.
Wow. I
Uh
mean, when the look looks,
when the look looks, because I don't think he was a martyr, St. Nicholas. Wow, I'm exposing myself as a fake fan. I don't remember how he died.
fake Catholic.
Is he a martyr? He was not a martyr. Because usually red is
Lame.
the color of martyrs. Because it's
Mm.
the blood when your suitor gouges your eyes out. St. Lucie.
Hmm. I remember her.
Yeah.
Um, God.
Because they're like, some of these stories are like, because she was a virgin, she was devoted to Christ. And I'm like, she's also 12. And maybe wasn't that into getting married.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought?
Wow.
So Santa Claus was then from North America kind of exported back to Europe.
Hmm.
And that created some conflict because now Santa Claus was replacing people's traditions. Now gift giving had was moving further from St. Nicholas Day to Christmas, and local gift giving figures like maybe the Italian Christmas witch or Chris Kindle were slowly being eclipsed by Santa Claus. And so this kind of homogenous American imperialism.
Italian Christmas witch?
Yeah. I've done
God, I
no
hope
research on
there
her.
is a movie about her because I want to learn everything.
Uh so it's just like it's Santa Claus is being exported across the world, and so a lot of countries are like, this is American imperialism, this is consumerism. So you get the backlash of he represents consumerism.
Hmm.
The war on Christmas is still being waged. I think the people who wage it the hardest are Christians. There are a lot of Christians who don't like Christmas and they don't like Santa Claus, or they think it needs to be more serious and holy. And I'm like, that's never really been
I
Christmas's
was just gonna
deal.
say, you're saying that there wasn't a lot of Christ in Christmas,
I mean, it was in for most of European history that we're talking about, it was still acknowledged as a celebration of his birth. Like you would
but
still be attending mass, you would still be,
right.
but it wasn't like serious or somber. It was a holiday, it was a day of festivities,
Yeah.
and it was always the biggest holiday. Like we talked about with the night before Christmas, like a lot of knighting ceremonies. It was always big and popular because it had kind of had something for everybody.
Yeah.
Had social giving, it had church and prayer, it had celebration, it had horniness and sluttiness, which the Puritans did not like.
Of
This is one of the
course
reasons they're
not.
trying to get rid of it. They were
Hmm.
not Santa baby fans. And so even still, I remember growing up with people who believed Santa Claus was trying to eclipse Jesus, or that you couldn't believe in Santa and Jesus.
Right. I think that was sort of the what happened when I was a
Yeah,
kid is that it was like it's one or the other, right? Because like I couldn't have Harry Potter because that's demonic, right?
yeah.
I think it was something similar to that. It's like you either are all Jesus, you can't have one foot in, one foot out kind of thing.
And I was always like, well, he's a saint, so he's like on Jesus's team.
True.
Like that's like he's celebrating his birthday. Like, do you think
Yeah.
if it was Jesus' birthday, you think Jesus is gonna do all the work? He's
Well,
gonna go deliver all those gifts. It's his birthday.
I think the point that like a lot of people are making with the put the Christ back in Christmas is that more people than ever in America are not Christian,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's being from another religion or not being religious at all.
Yeah.
And so it's like their numbers are dwindling. And so it's sort of like, well, now Christmas is becoming more
Secular.
secular, yes.
Yeah.
And so that's not cool to them. But it seems like there was a lot of secular things always happening with
Yeah.
Christmas traditions. So that's interesting.
It's interesting, and like because people talk about Yule, right? That's and solstice as kind of like pagan reconstruction, neo-pagan Wiccan. But even then, people say like when people talk about Yule, a lot of that is like made up or like it's reconstructing traditions from several different
Right.
countries across the globe. Like that wasn't people weren't celebrating that in that exact way before Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a bad thing. I mean, if it is, if you're saying Yule's historically accurate, but it is like it's just that's how, like we don't have a lot of set notes on how people didn't write things down about how they
Mm-hmm.
celebrated the solstice or whatever.
Right.
Um, so I mean, even with Christmas, there's some gray areas, but we know it was always a societal celebration. Now, religion and society were intertwined. So everyone was Christian. Now, how invested in that I mean, I think they, as in general, were because it was so intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like we're in a society now where church and state are separate entities.
Well, they're
I know
supposed to be.
they're supposed to be. People are trying, but like when you compare to like the Church of England, now
Right.
had like the monarch rules by that church's authority, right? So it's like in the US, we're separate, and a lot of countries aspire to some kind of separation of church and state in this
Right.
time. Uh, And so, but Christmas is people have fond memories, there's a lot of traditions, people want to keep celebrating it, even if they no longer, even if they're not that religious, or if they're not religious at all, or they're part of a different religion. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think there's people want to be like, well, you can't take part in this because this isn't
Right.
yours. But the three magi came from the East. They were not Jewish. They're not part of Jesus' culture. They were
Good
involved.
point.
The angel said, peace on earth to all men of goodwill, all
Mm.
people of goodwill. So it's like, I think that's if we were talking about the true meaning of Christmas, is it not like a celebration of everyone being of goodwill? Like, hey, we're all people trying to do our best. Like, hey, some people don't have goodwill, and maybe this holiday isn't for them. But for those of us who do, like this can be our holiday, and it can mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
Uh, I didn't expect to get into this, but uh, I
It's lore.
it's lore,
You
and I
know.
do remember when I was a college Bible study leader. Usually I had to be like I like wanted to respect all ideas, everything people brought up, because you want people to contribute. You didn't want
Right.
people to feel like, oh no, you're wrong, because that's not fun. But the one time I did say, no, that's not no. Someone was like, well, isn't Santa Claus like Satan? Because like Santa, Satan, and they wear red and they take stuff from Jesus. And I was like, okay,
Santa takes stuff from Jesus.
takes attention.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, well, Santa just means holy. It's a prefix that means holy, and Klaus is a
Mm-hmm.
name, so it means holy Klaus. Red is a marketing choice. Like the Latin Romance language term for holy has nothing to do with the Hebrew term for adversary.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah. I think if
Okay.
you're talking about de-Christianizing Christmas, I just don't feel like Santa's the culprit. And
No, it's
it
corporations.
yes, I was gonna say if there's anything that's de-Christianizing or
Capitalism.
de-spiritualizing even the holiday, it would be uh capitalism, because I've talked about this with I usually say happy holidays to people, but sometimes
Mhm.
I find the phrase is just a way like everything is still centered around Christmas and Western Christmas traditions, but we just slap holiday on it to make it more marketable instead of actually taking time to be inclusive and learn about
Right.
other traditions and other holidays.
That's a good point. Yeah, because like both of us work at really big companies.
Yeah.
And so we're surrounded by people who could be of any faith or no faith at
Yeah.
all, celebrate this season in a variety of ways. And so it's like, with a push toward inclusivity, whether it's as genuine or not, depending on your
Yeah.
feelings of it, it's still like, it's their way of being like, let's just try to be inclusive with our words.
Yeah.
And so like, I've been like that probably since college, because I went to a school where there were a lot of students, international students from like China, and then also from like the Middle East.
Yeah.
And so like those cultures is very different. And so I just kind of learned to say it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a really good point, is that like, is it just kind of a facade? Which,
It can be both. I think it can be
yeah,
on
I
a
agree.
corporate level a facade, and I think it can also be a way to be intentionally inclusive in your interactions. I mean, I usually say
Mhm.
happy holidays throughout the season, and then like Christmas Eve,
I
Christmas,
I
I'll
also
say Merry
think
Christmas because it's Christmas Day. I'm going to say Merry Christmas.
I also think it can be both a facade and a genuine being inclusive thing for corporations, because money is money, you
Yeah.
know? So if it's like, oh, well, we can make money from Jewish people by having Hanukkah stuff,
Mm-hmm.
cool, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's holidays. Interesting. I guess the one last thing, Rudolph was a book written in the 30s,
mhm.
1939. So I believe, yes, before homosexual was in the Bible. I'm just coming out with lots of hot takes today. Rudolph existed. Uh, so this book, yeah, this book was written in the 30s, late 30s, became very popular, got a song.
When did the song come out? Is the book is the song just the book
I
in
think
song
the
form?
book is a poem, and then the poem became a song.
Got it. Right.
All right. So yeah, let's see. Based
On the novel Push by
the
Sapphire.
song, then it was a 1949 song, which is based on the poem written in 1939. The
Yep.
guy who wrote the song is the brother-in-law of the guy who wrote the poem.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
There are multiple versions of both movies we're talking about today. Because that's okay, sorry. We did the lore. We lored it up. Uh the I'm sure I'll after this I'll be like, oh, I forgot to mention this. But basically, very similar to Halloween when we talk about the history
Mhm.
of Halloween, of like it starts with European traditions, kind of gets codified into something more marketable in America, and then we push it out to the rest of the world, and they either like it or dislike it.
Import, export.
Export. Uh, and on along the way, Puritans and communists are trying to get it canceled.
Yeah.
Uh, Though I think I did hear that Stalin started to let people do it. He was struggling into the polls, and so he's like, okay, Grandfather Frost is back. Uh, yeah, I
Stalin.
mean, he saw what happened to the White Witch when Santa Claus came back because she was fighting it, and then her empire collapsed. He was trying to stop
Yikes.
it. Yeah. Um. All right. So these movies, there are multiple versions of them in that like some of them will have scenes that others don't. And it's very confusing
Oh,
to keep track of. It's not like, oh, there's one edition and then an extended cut. I think the ones that we saw on this, maybe I don't know
did
where.
you watch the video that I sent
Yeah.
you? Okay, that's one I watched too.
Because that was roughly what I remember watching.
Yeah, I
And
don't
from
remember seeing anything new.
there was
So
a newer VHS. The newer VHS cut some stuff from Santa Claus is Coming to Town,
interesting.
which we know my feelings about nymph erasure. I think
Yes.
it's there was something that was happening in the 2000s. I'm going to call it woman singing ballad in Christmas movie erasure, where ballads sung in Christmas movies by women were being cut. It happened in Muppet
They
Christmas
cut
Carol too.
Jessica's song in
They
that
cut Jessica's
VHS.
song, yeah.
Interesting.
And then Rudolph, there was a song that was put in at one point called Fame and Fortune, where Hermie
Hmm,
and Rudolph were going to go out and get their fame and fortune.
really? I
Yeah.
do not remember
And then
that.
if you see those versions, you're always like, wait, what?
That doesn't make any sense.
Because a couple of Misfits,
It makes sense.
yeah, was and that was so we did
It's
have a
thematic.
CD with some of these songs.
But Fame
Uh
and Fortune, that doesn't make sense for either of them because they just want to fit in.
yeah.
And having that song would make no sense.
Yeah, I think because We're a Couple of Misfits was on this CD as well. So to me, like that is the canon song.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
All right, let's rip off this band-aid. Okay, so let me just kind of give you a little overview. I took lots of notes during
Okay.
Rudolph. I have 2 lines from Santa Claus is coming to town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's our narrator. Where's my finger? My
Burl
finger.
Ives as a snowman.
Yes. He keeps popping in and out of existence because I keep doing that. Yeah. Let's start
Let's
there.
start there. There's a snowman, and he's like, "Have you ever?" Because it's a big blizzard that you see all the newspaper ads, and he's like, "Oh, this is almost as bad as that one blizzard." It would have been crazy if we didn't have Rudolph. Oh, did you not know Rudolph? You don't know Rudolph. Kind of embarrassing.
Cringe.
And he starts singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Burl Ives, I believe, was a celebrity.
Yes,
He
I
was like
think
the
so.
head top billing of this.
Yes.
And so he's singing, and we're whisked away to the 1950s America slash fascist hellscape that is Christmas Town, where
Which is
Don
just beyond this forest.
just beyond this forest, where Donner and is his wife named
No, Mrs. Donner. That's her
Mrs.
name. Because
Donner.
it's the 50s.
Yeah, I was just learning about Caroline Norton and how married women in England didn't have like legal existence,
Fun.
until that woman like really fought for things. It made me cry. Listen to that episode of Noble
Mm.
Blood. But yeah,
Oh, love that podcast. I haven't listened to it in so long though.
it's so good. Yeah. But yeah, she exists under him. But let's rip off this band-aid because they're trying to fit gender norms. The men have antlers, the women do not.
Uh-huh.
Uh,
Uh
which is interesting because
not
I bet someone was like, oh, they should all have antlers, and someone was like, audiences won't get that.
no. Well, they also make the female reindeer lighter color and
Yeah.
give them big lashes.
This is
It's insane how big their they went to Lash Bar for sure.
there are all those memes about how some animals in animated movies are like, well, which one's the girl, which one's the boy? Like one will basically be like an
Yeah.
animal with boobs that shouldn't have boobs. I think it's called lizard boobs is the meme. But yeah, this is the origin of some of that.
Mhm.
So yeah, Rudolph is born. Moments after he's born, his nose starts to glow. He's already learning to talk. He's a
And
fast
he makes like a
beep,
hoots. Yeah,
beep.
it's like a beep. It's cute.
Yeah, and then Santa comes in. He barges in on this dear woman that just birthed a child.
Postpartum.
Postpartum. The child's learning to speak, and he's like, "Hey, I'm Santa," and he's like, "Santa," and he's like, "What's that problem with your freaky deaky nose? Like, that's weird." And then he's like, "You better get rid of that because every year, I guess, but it seems like I'm confused by this whole setup. I choose who's gonna lead my sleigh, and then he sings jingle, jingle, jingle. I'm Kris Kringle. I'm the king of jingling." And like, poor Mrs. Donner gave birth. Santa Claus, the dictator of her town, comes in, shits on her kid, and sings a song prancing about and
Uh-huh.
leaves.
And then it's like, you better shape that kid up, and then leaves. Yeah.
What a nightmare.
And then Donner proceeds to verbally abuse his son.
He's like, you gotta cover up your freaky weirdness.
I was like looking up the title for some reason. I don't remember why. Maybe I was looking at the cast. And one of the Google suggested questions was, why is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie problematic? And of course I had to click on it. So I clicked on it, read the
Problematic
brief,
has become such a meaningless term.
completely meaningless, right? So it pulls up the little blurb when I click on it. and it said, the movie has themes that are considered, problematic or whatever by today's standards. For instance, Rudolph's father, Donner, is like verbally abusive to him. And I'm like, yeah, that's problematic because it was the fucking 60s. Every
Yeah.
father was verbally abusive, probably.
I think the thing about the movie that's interesting is it very much reads as also a critique of the 50s and of that culture.
Yes.
And
So
so
that's why
it's
I'm like, this is fine because it's not saying like, yeah, Donner's right. All the people who are bullying him, they're right. No, it's saying like, this isn't good.
yeah, like he's our main character, we're supposed to sympathize with him.
Yeah.
That is would be like being like Cinderella is problematic because the wicked stepmother is abusive. And you're like, well, that is the point. That is the conflict. That is the thing
Yeah.
that she's trying to overcome. Uh
Like, yeah, this is before the whole like kids are special thing that happened to our generation. So it's like,
yeah.
of course, like this 60s movie is gonna have like a kid who's kind of being bullied by his dad or being bullied by his dad,
Yeah, because the dad does show him how to do reindeer shit. He's like, this is how we're gonna and how to hide from the abominable snowman.
Snow monster.
Snow monster.
No gender.
He hates thank you, yeah. This non-binary icon hates everything, hates everything to do with Christmas.
Uh-huh.
Which again, there's a lot of interesting not it's like there's lore in this movie. And I'm like, okay, this could be interesting, but this movie does spoiler, it really does nothing with any of the elements it introduces. And
Well, I don't know. It does something with the dentistry. I would like to point out that the snow monster has teeth at the beginning of the
yes,
movie.
I just I think this is usually acknowledged as the most iconic of these specials. And I was like, there are better like this company has made better specials.
Yeah, I think it's way more unhinged than Santa Claus is coming to
Yeah.
town.
And so he's growing up being bullied, and then it's a time for but I
The
think
reindeer games.
they're going with the real reindeer timeline of like they reach adulthood in like a year, I'm
Is
guessing. Kind of
it
like Bambi, right?
not but like a preteen or
Adolescent.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So they're doing the reindeer games. The coach is
He
there.
meets a kid named Fireball.
Fireball. I'm
That kid's not
Fireball.
making the team. I've never heard of Fireball the reindeer.
No. And the coach is there, and they're like, we're gonna practice. And his friend Fireball is like, yeah, let's
Wait,
be
was it
friends.
I wrote down who it
Was it
was.
Blitzen or
I
Comet?
want I think it was Comet. Comet's the gym teacher. That's what I wrote.
Yeah. And because
Oh, well, right before this is where we meet Clarice. Is that her name?
yeah,
The
she's got a
girl.
bow.
Yeah. I said, what is this heterosexual nonsense with these reindeer?
So
Because the fireball is like, ooh, someone likes you.
yeah, he's
And I'm
like,
like,
time to impress the does. And I'm like, weren't you like born 2 weeks ago?
right? I was like, what is this heterosexual
Because
nonsense?
it's like it's also not just the fact that they want to impress them, but that an activity for the does is to watch gym class.
Well, what else does Mrs. Donner do?
Yeah, I guess they just like it's like ooh, and because Rudolph is wearing mud essentially over his nose.
Yeah. Or no,
Uh,
it's like a sock,
I thought it was
right?
like, doesn't the dad just
Well,
like pick up some mud from the
at
ground and
first it's mud. He covers it, but then he has like a little thing that he pops on it, like a sock.
yeah,
I don't know how they made that, but they did.
and
I don't know how, Comet got a whistle. I don't know how he's going to use
the
the
elves
whistle.
made it,
So,
which we'll
oh,
have
that's
to
right.
get
There
to the
are
elves.
elves.
We'll
That's
have to
right.
get to the elves, but
Oh boy.
yeah, no, we're again, no, so we're going a little disorganized, a little disordered this time, but it's the holidays,
I think it's good to get to. Okay, we'll go through all of Rudolph's stuff, then we'll go
and then
back
to
for
her
elves,
meet,
and
yeah,
then where they meet. Yeah,
yeah. So Rudolph is
they're gonna learn to
they're gonna
fly.
learn to fly, and then Fireball is like, oh, you have some time, go talk to the girls, and then they're like, oh, and he's like, oh, will you like walk home with me? And she's like, yeah, I think you're cute. She's like, oh, you talk funny. He's like, what's wrong with my voice? She's like,
Yeah, because he's
nothing,
nasally.
nothing. I think you're cute. And he's like, this was cringe. Sorry, I was like, I'm embarrassed for you, Rudolph.
I
You're
said, ew, that's
overreacting.
weird.
He was like, I'm
They're so
cute. I'm
cute.
cute. I'm cute. And he like
And he
flies
flies a little
around.
bit.
and he's a great flyer. So he has the talent,
Yeah.
but he has his nose glows, and everyone Fireball's like, get the fuck away from me, you weirdo. And I'm like, you have ugly
Yes,
hair.
they dropped the F-bomb in this children's cartoon. It
They
was
do.
great.
And everyone's like, oh, what gross. And Santa's like, Donner, you need to get your kid under control. It's a shame because he has talent, but he's a fucking freak.
Yeah, Santa, this is where I wrote Santa's so judgmental, he's on the naughty
He's
list.
on the. This is where I
But
wrote
not in a
hashtag
sexy way.
not in a sexy way. This is where I wrote hashtag not my Santa because I was like, this Santa would never give money to young sex workers who for as an out for them, not money
we
to solicit their service.
I would say
This Santa would give money to solicit their services.
that text that you sent me now makes more sense in the lore context
Yeah,
that you gave. I assumed it had to do with lore. I actually wasn't thinking about whether or not this Santa would solicit, but he would. This
yeah,
Santa would, and he would not.
and he'd be
He
very
would not pay them.
degrading. Yeah,
Yeah,
he'd be like, hey, sugar tits.
yeah. God. Anyway,
Yeah. So this Santa, I'm like,
also
God's
a
no.
very different Santa from Santa Claus is Coming to
No,
Town.
different Santas. Yeah. This is like the Tim Allen version of the Santa Claus. Like this Santa murdered the last one and took over.
Oh, okay. Yes, yeah.
Shout out
But
to
he's
the
not
Danny.
nearly as charming as Tim
Yeah.
Allen is in that movie.
Have you ever heard the Danny Gonzalez song, I'm Gonna Kill Santa Claus?
No, but that video popped up on my feed today. It was him talking about the worst Christmas movie ever, Santa Claus.
Yeah. But
Presumably where that song will
he sings
appear.
a song about like, I have it on my Christmas playlist, about like, I'm gonna kill Santa Claus so that I can be Santa Claus. And he's like, I don't
Uh-huh.
know why the rule is like this. This makes no sense, but so this one murdered the original Santa,
No,
and
like Tim Allen's was an accident, right?
this guy
And he put on
murdered.
this
Yeah,
guy straight up poisoned him.
yeah,
Poisoned him like Coco style.
and tried to like take over his life.
Yeah, like that's not his actual wife. That's the
Yeah,
other guy's wife.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
other
That's not
guy's Mrs. Santa's
Jessica.
Claus. No.
Yeah, this. He did a hostile takeover of Christmas.
So Rudolph is running off and he bumps into Clarice.
Yes, and Clarice is like, "Were you gonna walk me home?"
Mm-hmm.
And they're gonna walk home, and she's like, "Hey, it's okay to be different. I think it's beautiful.
I
You
like
that
your
you have this nose.
nose.
I like it."
Yeah.
She's accepting, and her animal friends join her for the song. There's always tomorrow for dreams to come true.
Snooze fest.
I think it's sweet. You know, I
It's
love a
fine.
dream.
I love dreams.
I
You
love
do. You
dreams.
do.
It's short. I
Yeah.
think if it was long, it is. Yeah, it's not. There are a lot of great songs about dreams, but this isn't a top tenner. But it's short. And then her dad shows up and is like, "No daughter of mine will be seen with a homosexual."
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
this is the queer reading of this movie is like there, like it's like
It's
almost
so
hitting
easy.
you in the face. They're
Yeah.
like, it doesn't matter if you're talented, whatever. Like you're weird. There's something wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so he runs off home and he's like saying how he's a misfit because he doesn't fit in, and he decides because he's like, my dad doesn't love me, so I'm gonna leave.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, homophobia is happening also in the central castle of this dictatorship.
Where
She's
the
trying
elf workshop
elf
also
worship.
exists.
Yeah, so because Mrs. Claus is trying to get Santa to eat more because
Which the
I
kids
don't
expect
get
a fat Santa. But
yeah.
here's the thing. He's going to eat cookies and milk. He's going to become fat by the end of the night. Does he need to? The kids are supposed to be asleep. They're not going to see him.
I truly don't
Unless he
understand
has
why
like
this.
a billion shifts at malls across the world.
I
I don't understand.
who put the subplot in? Because it goes nowhere. It adds nothing. I think someone
I
thought
mean,
it'd
it
be
does go
funny.
somewhere. He becomes fat at the end somehow.
Yeah,
I don't remember. I think he eats something and
this is again
poof.
further proof that this guy murdered the last Santa and is trying to
Yeah.
fill his shoes because he's still like, I want to be fat, but Mrs. Claus is like, in order to keep up this ruse, you have
Mm-hmm.
to fit the bill. in order to have this
Yeah.
power over these magical creatures of the North Pole.
Yeah.
That's now it makes sense in this context. This scene now makes sense. This plot,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we figured it out.
Figured it out. We're at the elf workshop. Herbie is behind.
Hermie.
Hermie.
Hate
Hermie the
it, but
dentist.
Hermie,
Hermie.
the
He is a
aspiring dentist.
aspiring dentist. He was my favorite character as a kid.
Mm,
Shocker. He's a
yeah.
little gay elf with
I don't like
swirly
his
hair.
face. I don't like his hair. I
I
don't
love
like
his
his
hair.
voice.
It's my hair.
I don't like him. Well,
Yeah, you're a
there
Hermie hater
there's
because
just
you're homophobic.
but I also think that like there's just something about this animation. It's a little like the
Unsettling.
reindeer, I don't mind. Yes, I think it's unsettling, like, but the people I don't like. In Santa Claus is Coming to Town, I think it's a lot smoother. And
Yeah.
so but there's something really weird and off about the animation of the humanoid characters in this one that is like meh. But as we talk more about Hermie, perhaps my thoughts will change. But anyway, this elf guy who's like running the workshop,
Yeah.
so abusive.
Yeah, he is violating every OSHA code. I mean, I guess this is a
Yeah.
dictatorship. There's no workers' rights. There's no
Also,
union.
I think Hermie also maybe just has ADHD too. Like he just like he can't keep up with the work because he keeps getting distracted.
Yeah. And he's like, you can't
It
take a break.
happens.
You can't take a break. You have to keep painting these wagons.
And then he just whips out a book on dentistry. Where did he get it? Where?
He stole from the library.
They have a library?
Yeah, it's a castle. Castles have libraries.
Duh. Wait, is that in the movie that he says that he's got from the
No.
library?
No, I
Okay,
just
because I was
assumed.
say he just pulled it from his butt. Like,
So that yeah, because he's like, I don't like to make toys. I
we
want to
also
be a
learned that they do
dentist.
not have dental care
No, they don't have
because
dental care.
there's no dentist.
And the elves are like, Herbie doesn't like to make toys. Herbie doesn't like to make toys.
All of
Herbie
these
likes to
people
fuck
are
boys.
judgmental. They're judgmental bitches.
They are.
And it's crazy because, like, if you think about trickle down economics, trickle down culture, it's coming from the top man,
From
Santa himself.
murder fascist
Santa in quotes.
Fake
He's
Santa.
judgmental, and so it trickles down.
Yeah, he
That's what this movie's
poisoned.
about.
He poisoned the society of Christmas Town.
That's what this movie is about.
Yeah, because when you
Wow.
see Santa Claus coming to town, you see this almost very like sweet kind of like origin story of this, and then
Yeah.
you're like, how did we go so wrong? Where did we lose?
He
How did we
murdered Kris
stray so
Kringle.
far from the path?
He murdered the ginger Kris Kringle.
That's why he comes in and sings, "I am old Kris Kringle. I'm the king of jingling," because he's like, "I'm Kris Kringle. Yeah, I'm Kris Kringle, right?"
Yeah, he's like, I'm Kris Kringle, CHRISCRINGLE. Kris Kringle, right?
And they're like, "I guess whatever it takes for you to let me deal with the fact that I just squeezed a child out of me." Yeah, they're like, "Who doesn't like to make toys?" And so they all get to take a break. He doesn't, and then later
There's elf practice.
because they have to practice like perform their ethnicity. They have to
Yeah.
and they sing, "We are Santa's elves,"
And they're like,
all engendered colors.
yes, all of the male, presumably male elves, there are different types. Like there's a tall, skinny one, there's like a taller, fat one, there's like small, chunky ones, right?
The women are
There's
all
a
the
variety.
same.
Women are just like cookie cutter.
Yeah.
Granted, maybe we were just looking at a set of triplets. We don't know, but I doubt it. So yeah, Santa's there watching. He's disgruntled, and the conductor of the elf practice choir, I guess is what it is the guy who's running the workshop. But while they're doing it, they're all kind of like chaotic. And there's this one part where the one elf is singing and hitting the other elf in the back in his face, behind him in his face. And I was like, oh, he's hitting him with his ear. And then this elf pulls out a pair of scissors while they're singing. I was like, he's going to chop that other elf's ear off. And then he chops off like the feather that was in his hat. I was like, oh my God. I literally thought I was about to witness like serious assault.
I mean,
like that was so
in
intense.
Dystopian Christmas Town.
They put one of them in a bag.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking weird. And Santa's like, this sucks. I hate you. And
They're
Mrs.
all this.
Claus,
They're upset. Their dictator disapproves, and Mrs. Claus is like, "It's wonderful."
yeah, it's like, Papa doesn't know what he's talking about. They call each other Mama and Papa, and it literally makes me think of Mike Pence and his wife.
Say Mike Pence. Well,
Mother, hate it.
because I feel like Mrs. Claus is trying to keep up the ruse more. She's like, we have to
Yes.
do something to keep up that we're the same person.
Okay, I just want to let the listeners know that this thread that we're talking about, that's something we're putting in. Okay, we're interpreting. That's
Yeah,
not the actual lore, but maybe it is.
but maybe
Like
it's not
that
in the
that's
movie.
the subtext.
Yeah, that's what we're reading into it, watching these. If these two movies are in the same universe, to me, that's the only
This is
way
the
this makes
only
sense.
explanation. Yes.
Yeah. Herbie missed elf practice because there weren't enough tenors. Obviously, he's a tenor. He's played by Chris
Obviously.
Colfer. They uh the the head elf comes in. Why weren't you at elf practice?
Yeah, oh, really
Shout out
quick.
to John, our listener, who sent that meme that was like, Hannah would hate this. It's Squidward sleeping, and then the door opened. Why weren't you at elf practice?
Excellent meme. But so when the head elf is like talking to Santa before elf practice, he's like, oh yes, this is our elf practice. And then he gets in the workshop to scream at Hermie, voice is completely different.
Yeah.
This is literally split personality.
And Hermie's like, I can't deal with this anymore. I'm just a misfit.
Mm-hmm.
And so
But I'm
he,
not a nitwit,
yeah,
because that's what he and Rudolph both
Rudolph say.
say.
And then
They
they later say,
sing to
we're
this.
not Daffy and Dilly, don't go around willy-nilly later. So the implication here is that the only proper reason someone should be a misfit is if they're Daffy and Dilly and go around willy-nilly.
Yeah.
They are pro Daffy discrimination, which just shows that no matter how progressive you can be for your particular time as an outcast, there's still a lot of things you need to unlearn. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Preach.
So
They meet
Hermie,
up
they
in the
meet up
woods.
in the woods. They're sad. Hermie's cruising. And they're like, we're leaving. At the time. Uh,
Yes.
so they sing "We're a couple of misfits" because they're like, oh, like a dentist elf, a reindeer with a red nose. They're like, hey, will you judge me? And they're like, no, like we're misfits. We get
Mm-hmm.
it. We're the Alphabet Mafia, and they go off to kind of find a place where they'll be accepted.
Mm.
Meanwhile, Donner and his wife are like, oh shit, our kid ran away, and Donner's like, I'm gonna go after him, and his wife is like, well, let me come too.
He goes,
Uh,
no, you're a woman.
he's
Stay
like,
here.
yeah, he's like, there's no place for a woman. And
This is a
then
man's work.
a
That's what he
man's
says.
work. And then a little girl, Clarice, comes in and is like, hey, my crush is missing. Do you want to we'll go find him?
She's
So
like, oh
it's
my
like,
God, your crush is my son. Let's go
yeah,
together.
let's go. Which I wish they had done anything with anything in this movie. Okay, so that's going on. So, instead of supervising being there with your wife as you look for your son, your wife will now be with like a 12-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Hopefully her parents know that she's gone. Who
And
knows?
yeah.
Actually, I don't think so, because they're gone for months. Because over the course of these months, Hermie and Rudolph are like hiding from the abominable snow monster, who's
Attracted to Rudolph's
presumably,
nose.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then they run into a character I did not remember, Yukon
Yukon Cornelius
Cornelius.
with his sleigh run by just assorted random dogs.
Yeah,
Who
I think
often
there's like
don't
a
know.
King Charles Spaniel in there. It's like, that is not a mushing
And
dog.
they don't know what to do half the time. So half the time he's pulling the sleigh with the dogs on it, which
He's,
I thought was funny.
yes. And he's, Yukon, he's like a miner, right?
Yeah.
Or what's it called?
A prospector.
Prospector. And this I did actually think was kind of funny. Like, anytime he slams his pickaxe into the snow, he sniffs it and licks it. He goes, nothing. Like, he can't find any gold
Yeah.
or silver.
Because he's like, I'm looking for silver and gold. And then the snowman is like, silver and gold, huh?
It's not up here, friend.
Is that up
That's
here?
basically what he says.
But it's on a Christmas tree, and I'm gonna sing about silver and gold on a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Uh,
Anyway.
so we get a
But
little
then
song.
But
about
then they
silver
join
girls.
up.
They join up and they escape the snowman, the abominable snow monster. I keep misgendering this monster.
How dare you?
And they escape on an iceberg, and they end up
Mhm.
through a thick fog that's as thick as peanut butter. No, I think you mean to say as thick as pea soup. Always remember that line.
That is such a weird line.
I always think of the line I always think of too is when he's like, douse the light, and he like covers Rudolph's nose. We say that whenever we like put out a light in our family. We'd be like, douse the light. Because we watched this one a lot because this was a popular one, but I'm like, what the
Hmm.
fuck? So they go to the island of misfit toys, which I think is a huge part of the popularity of this
Yeah.
movie.
As soon as they got there, and I went, oh no, not this song.
You don't like that song?
No. But then again, it does make a lot more sense in this context than it does in the context of Glee, them decorating the tree.
Yeah. So they go on the island of misfit toys and they meet these toys. Uh,
Charlie in the box, which
Charlie
is
in the
kind of
box.
funny.
A gun that shoots jelly, a water pistol that shoots jelly,
A white spotted elephant.
elephant, a plane that
What's wrong with the
swims.
doll?
That's so apparently this is a whole section on the Wikipedia page.
Oh my god, I need to know.
And it's about people's theories. And one of the creators seemed to imply that she was sad and she's supposed to smile more. Or like that she had a mental disorder. This should be a happy doll and she's
Right.
depressed.
Girl, same.
Gross. She's Barbie. When will I?
Yeah. Do you guys ever think
Yeah.
about dying?
And they sent her to this
And they're like,
island.
good, get the fuck off. Yeah, this movie's Barbie before Barbie.
And so their
Famously,
rule.
where what's her name got the idea?
Greta Gerwig.
I literally could not remember her name
Yeah,
for a second.
the other creator of Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
So up in the sky, they're ruled over by King Moonracer, a winged lion who
I was like,
collects.
it's Aslan.
He collects toys that no child loves,
That's
not a single
bold.
one, and
I thought
they
that spotted elephant was adorable.
and so this well obviously he just wasn't appreciated. They sing the song. They're like, "Can we live here?" And he's like, "Toys need a safe place, but living beings
You
cannot.
can't hide,
You can't hide."
which
Yeah,
is like, that's true though.
yeah. I was like, wow, the only wise person in this movie.
Aslan.
And he's like, hey, can you go talk to that dick fake Santa Claus? He's like, can you talk to Santa and ask him if he could find a home for my toys? Because he knows what all the boys and girls want. He knows someone who'd
Mhm.
appreciate like a spotted elephant. Because he's like, the toys haven't filled their purpose unless they're loved by a child. Very Toy Story. And so
Mhm.
they're staying in a cottage, and Rudolph is like, I ruin things for everyone. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna be alone. He's like, I hope you're a great dentist, whatever that is, Herbie, and I hope you find gold, Yukon. So he leaves his friends, he goes off, and he grows
He
up.
wanders for months.
Months. He becomes a new character model.
Hmm.
And then he is wandering around and he just decides to go back to Christmas Town where
Yeah.
everyone's like, there's old Neon Nose. And they're like, oh, your family is gone. They ran away.
Yeah.
Guess
He goes to the cave, and Santa's like, yeah, your family, they ran away, or they left because you ran away. They're out there looking for you.
he goes to find them
He
and
just suddenly knows where to find them,
and
which
yeah, he goes
is,
to the cave of the snowman. Or
yes, Snow Monster.
oh my gosh, I'm canceled. And so he goes to save because they're all suddenly together. They're all gonna be eaten by the monster very slowly. He
Yeah.
goes to save them. He gets knocked out.
He
Um,
gets pummeled.
Pummeled.
That was crazy.
So yeah, Rudolph gets pummeled. And then Hermie and Yukon looking for Rudolph. The snowman is like, yo, check out the cave of the abominable snow monster.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, okay, we need a plan. And then he's like, okay, Hermie pretend to be a pig. Because the monster might
He's
eat
like,
Rudolph, and Clarice is like, why can't he just get it over with? I'm like, damn, girl.
yeah, that is, I mean,
Dark.
but the anxiety would also be
Yeah.
eating me up inside too. But yeah, no, like he's like, because no abominable snow monster can resist a pork dinner.
And so
So
he's sitting.
he's like does like these like wimpy little
He's like,
snores,
oink.
and he goes, yeah, he's like, put some heart into it.
He was like, oink, 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 oink. So Hermes oinking. The snowman, snow monster,
Comes
uh,
out,
comes out, and the
and
you
the reindeer are safe, and
because
then
Yukon cuts the ice on top of the and he gets hit, and the
yep.
monster is temporarily unconscious, and in that short period of time,
No,
Herm
wait. So the snow monster comes back, and Hermes like, hey guys, and like, oh my god, how did you get underneath him? Like, isn't he gonna eat you? He goes, he can't because he doesn't have teeth.
and so he's like
Hermes ripped out
his teeth.
all of those monsters' teeth. I was like, that is so fucking metal.
That is so much.
I
That is
was
a
like,
violation of like the Geneva Accords, but
I was literally like, that is literally a war crime. And this isn't a kid's movie.
yeah.
I was like, but also apparently that, made him a nice snow monster.
Well, first
Well, we find out
Yukon,
later.
because Yukon and the monster fight, and then Yukon and the dogs all pummel down the cliff with the monster.
Yeah, that was wild.
And they're like, oh, and they were sad about their friends, but they knew they had to get the women back to Christmas Town.
That's literally what the snowman says. I was like, wow, the past.
And this snow, which is funny because this is not the oldest movie we've watched.
No.
It is the most very obvious in its gender
Yeah.
politics. So it's snowing hard. They're worried about having to cancel Christmas.
Also,
Uh,
there's no need to cancel the Christmas. They could just postpone it until the snow's over.
Also, did we not? The Grinch isn't Christmas in your heart, not about gifts.
Yeah, but that's on a snowflake in Whoville.
Yeah, like you can't cancel the birth of Christ, fascist Santa, fascist fake Santa.
Exactly.
Yeah, because this if he was the real Santa, he would know that they just picked Christmas. It doesn't have to be. And so Rudolph and Fred Gang show up, and they're like, oh hey, you're safe. And Rudolph is like, hey, I know these misfit toys. Can you look check on them? Santa's like, okay. And
Sure.
then they're all like, oh no, there's a Yukon Cornelius and this monster. And he's like, he's looking for a job. He wants to put the star on top of the tree.
Apparently, he actually does like Christmas.
Yeah, and now it's time for Have a Holly Jolly Christmas, which the snowman is not allowed inside. He has to sing this song from the outside.
Well, he'll melt.
Yeah, Olaf. And then they are like, oh, but it's so snowy, we're gonna have to cancel Christmas. And then he's like, Rudolph, your nose. It's
Won't
so
you guide my
bright.
sleigh tonight?
And I'm like, what a fake ass hoe.
Also, a Santa grabbed Rudolph's I wrote horns, but his antler. And I was like, that's a microaggression.
Yeah. He is just like, oh, now you can finally be of use to me.
Yep,
Rudolph
exactly.
should have been like, no, I
No.
want your entire culture to be canceled. If you can't do this gift delivery, this society will collapse. Your power.
If
People realize
Gen Z rewrote this
they
movie.
will realize that you're a failure of a Santa, that you're not the real Santa, and there'll be unrest. There'll be a collapse of Christmastown society, but you all deserve it because your society sucks. It should collapse. But
Yeah.
instead, Rudolph just conforms.
Yep.
Also, Hermie realizes that his boss had bad dental care and is setting up an appointment for him.
Yeah,
And
because
like,
he's like, you know what? Open a dentist's office.
yeah,
And apparently the reason why he's been so grouchy, the head elf, is because he has like a million cavities,
yeah.
probably.
And I'm like, is Hermie just gonna do a war crime to this guy?
Probably. I mean, again, well,
He's
here's
a
the thing. What if
self-trained dentist.
Rudolph and Hermie are infiltrating from the inside to
Yeah,
cancel the culture without all their teeth?
yeah.
Like it's happening.
I need to write this. Yeah, I've actually having some kind of Hermie the dentist centric Christmas movie has been percolating in my brain for years.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think in a previous episode I talked about how much I hated Hermie, and I still don't like him. but he's metal as fuck.
You're like, I can respect that.
I can game respect game. Not that I pulled out people's teeth before, but yeah.
So
Or
they're
violated the Geneva Convention
mention.
that
Oh,
I
and
know of.
the misfit toys are sad, but then Santa comes to pick them up so they can be loved. And they are the doll's like, she says, I have no more dreams left to dream. And you're like, wow, she is a depressed doll.
It sounds
But
like she got hit by Magnifico.
Magnifico took her wish.
Mm-hmm.
Uh yeah, this Santa is giving Magnifico. And so they distribute the misfit toys. And yeah,
That's
okay.
basically
This
it.
plot, like, even just like, yeah, we're criticizing the message and like the society, but it also like though it's like sort of making sense. And then when from the point Rudolph goes off on his own to the end, it is complete nonsense. You're like, what is
Chaos.
happening? They're just trying to like, oh, we
None of
threw
this
out
was
all
in the
these
book.
they threw out all these plot points. How do we resolve this? And we have like 20 minutes left.
Yeah,
And how do we make
it's
him hot so he can make out with the reindeer, other girl reindeer under the mistletoe?
ew.
Because like, why did he
Gross.
need to age?
I
Because
don't know.
also in Rudolph's Shiny New Year, Rudolph is a child again.
Retcons.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know.
the Rankin
They,
the RBCU is a mess.
yeah, I mean, I would quickly like to point out some of the commercials that I enjoyed during this special. Noelco razors featured prominently throughout both. McDonald's gift certificates, each were 50 cents, and it was advertised to give them out to your babysitter, to your florist, to your barber.
A 50 cent.
50 cents gift certificate, but I think it was the value of like a sandwich or fries or something.
Oh, okay. Because it's gonna be like giving someone. I know inflation, but I don't think giving someone something that was 50 cents would be rude.
Pretty wild, right? Johnny Cash did a commercial for Lionel Trains.
Mhm.
And then the original Easy Bake Oven
Wow,
appeared.
I love history.
Yeah, it was pretty great. What else? Is there any others? I don't think I've written any others, but lots of GI Joe commercials.
Yes, there's some
Um
Barbie, Winter
there was
Olympic
there was
Barbie.
yeah, Winter Olympic Barbie. That's kind of it. Oh, car commercials, which was really interesting to see these old like Cadillacs.
Yeah.
Um yeah, it was interesting in Pontiacs. So anyway,
So let's talk about the better one. Santa Claus is coming to town.
I
Like
have two notes.
significantly better.
I have two notes. I
Yes.
hate this narrator's animation. That was the first thing I wrote. I don't like the way he looks.
Yeah.
I don't like his long face.
Very
He
long.
kind of looks like Fred Astaire, I guess.
But he gives Dick
Um,
Van Dyke.
but he gives Dick. Yes, he's giving Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah.
And then I also wrote, "How does Kris Kringle not have an accent?" Those are my only notes.
So Santa Claus. This guy is a
Yes.
mail truck. No, he runs a mail truck.
He is a mail truck. He's a mail delivery person. He's our snowman. He's our narrator.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, we got all these letters to Santa, and but they aren't like, this is what I want. They're questions.
They're
They're like,
lore
who are
questions.
you? Why do you have a beard? Where'd you get your red suit? You
Yes.
know, what is all this? And he's talking to the animals, and the letters are kind of the voices of kids.
Yes.
And he's like, which sounds creepier than it is. I don't know, it works for
Well,
me.
I think it's actually kind of interesting because it's like the snowman obviously is telling a story to children or families or whatever. But in this one, there's like call and response, which is
Yeah.
actually kind of interesting. Like over the actual like film, you would hear a little kid chime in and then it would be like, yeah, that's right. And
Mhm.
it actually was kind of like you're sitting around with other kids listening to the story. It was actually kind of it was cool. It was actually weirdly immersive.
Yeah, this one is definitely holds like Rudolph. I was like, what the fuck? And this I was like, yeah, this is a story. It tracks.
Yeah.
And its own internal logic. So there's a place called Somber Town. Speaking of dragging the Puritans,
Yeah,
ruled over
really.
by
Burger
Burgermeister
Meisterberg
Meisterburger.
Meisterburger Burgermeister.
Yes, because
Meisterburger.
burger was a term I think for like a certain German social class.
Yeah, so it's Meisterburger Burgermeister.
Burgermeister. My dad used to sometimes call me Callmeister or Callmeister something, and I hated it because of this guy. I didn't want
Well,
to be
that makes
associated with
sense.
him. Yeah. And so
No,
this
he's the worst.
his assistant comes in and is like, I found this baby on your doorstep named Klaus. It says, can you look after him? He'll be special with the right love. And he's like, send him to the orphan asylum. Like,
Yeah.
he's like, I
Well,
don't have time
also
for a baby. I hate babies.
that note says just as long as he stays away from the mountain of whispers or whatever it's
The
called.
Whispering Winds. Because
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
ruled over by the Winter Warlock.
Yes.
So he's like, okay, take him to the orphan asylum. But in the snow, the sled
He's
that this
pulling
baby
the,
is on,
which is wild.
this
The sled
red-headed
gets
baby,
this baby's sled on the sled gets lost and it like zooms away.
and the guy's just like, oh well, he's like baby Klaus, but then at the end of the day, he's like, oh well. And then the animals, though, I love the animals in this movie.
Mm,
They're like, we gotta protect him from the Winter Warlock.
mm-hmm.
So they're running away. The Winter Warlock was scary. I mean, the Abominable Snowman scared me as a kid, or Snow
Snow
Monster
monster.
scared me as a kid, but the Winter Warlock scared me, and like I felt like the characters, I don't know, like his scariness, like the animals, like you felt like a gotta get it, like
His animation's pretty scary. Like
yeah.
his face is for sure.
And they sneak him off to Rainbow Bend Valley, where there's like a rainbow river, and there are this cottage commune of elves.
Uh-huh.
I'm guessing it's like they're like, I think are they reverse Mormons because they call one elf their queen, but she just sits in a rocking chair? Or are they aristocracy in a
Well, it
diaspora?
said well, because it's sister wives, right? And they call themselves brothers.
Yeah. So
Maybe it is.
maybe.
Wow, spicy.
Yeah.
Or it's just
A very small community with a queen in a rocking chair.
yeah,
Tanta Kringle. I love her. So they're like, oh, we found this baby, Dingle, Kringle. That's the one part of the
Zingle,
special that is like
blingle.
a little cringe. I'm like, okay. But they take it to Tanta Kringle, and she's like, we'll call him Chris. I'm done with your Ingle names. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
she's like, he's gonna be Chris, and we're gonna raise him. And so they teach him how to make toys
Because they're
because
toy
they're toy
makers.
makers. They also educate him. They teach him to read and write,
And to count the stars.
count the stars. The
Um,
animals teach him how to slide and climb. The seals teach him how to laugh.
yes.
And ho ho
It's
ho.
all these things that we complain about Disney explaining different bits of lore. We're like, how did this happen? They're like, well, let us tell you. And we're like, no. But in this, it's like, love that he learned how to laugh from a seal.
It
That
just
makes sense.
it
It
makes
sounds
sense.
ridiculous.
Yeah, but in the story, you're like, yeah, because I think it still feels whimsical and
Yeah.
magical, and it doesn't feel like belabored and overly complex. It's just like, all right,
Yes.
okay. And so then they make toys. They show him how, and like we used to be the first toy makers to the king.
But now there's no one to give toys to, so they just pile up outside, which is
Yeah, they
like,
have a little
oh
landfill.
man.
They're a toy making addict. But I love
Well,
the toy makers to the king song.
yeah, it is actually kind of nice. And it's weird. Like, I kind of remembered it. Like, I was humming
Yeah,
along. I was like, oh, I kind of know this. I like the idea that just because these toys end up not having a purpose, they don't lose their love of their craft, which I
yeah,
thought was, it's a very, like, it's not obvious if you don't think about it. But I was like, huh, that's actually like a good message that, like, doing something you like to do just for the sake of doing it because you like to do it,
yeah.
you know?
And they're good at it. And it
Yeah.
makes them happy. Yeah. So he's like, when I grow up, I'm gonna take the toys to the kids. And he
Mm-hmm.
does. And he said, this is a line that we say in my family all the time. I'm a man now, Tonto Kringle. Because they're just standing there. He's like, I'm a man now. So
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna go. And they're like, oh, but like they're sad. But she gives him a special warm Chris Kringle, a Kringle cloak, a red with the
He
white fur.
finally, and they're like, oh, that's how he got his red cloak. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They wish him fond farewell, and he goes over the mountain with the toys. He sees a penguin that's lost, looking for the South Pole. He's super lost.
Very lost, the
This
most
is set
lost.
in the northern countries.
Yeah. And so he's basically like, well, You know what? Why don't we just hang out? I'll call you
Yeah.
Topper.
And he's like, yeah. But they're being the Winter Warlock is like, get out of my mountain, get out of my swamp.
Yes.
He's giving and so they're like running away because he's there practicing his snowy incantations in his castle. And so they're running
Mm-hmm.
away, and they get to Somber Town, and they're like, okay. But in Somber Town, this Meisterburger is so Congress coded. He so totally reminds me of Congress. So he slips on a toy and then decides that toys,
Banning them.
because he broke his funny bone. We say that all the time. Oh no, it's what I
His
thought.
funny
It broke.
bone, which is in his arm,
But
but then he's in a wheelchair in like a full
yeah,
body cast or some shit.
and he fell on his ass.
Yeah, so he's the worst.
But he's like, toys are illegal, immoral, unlawful, and anyone who found with a toy will be thrown in the dungeon. And the decree has no kidding on it. But he sings, there will be no toy makers to the king. He
Yeah,
says,
so the
arrest the
reverse.
beautiful toes of the ballerinas.
Yeah, it's like the reverse
Yeah.
reprise of.
Yeah. So his fascist soldiers are ripping toys out of children's arms and burning
Reminds me of
them.
the scene in Prince of Egypt when they're taking the
Yes.
babies,
And they burn them, and the kids are all weeping. And they're like,
which
you shall
is
never play
crazy.
again.
Yeah, and so when Kris Kringle shows up, they're washing stockings and they're like, "That's all we do is chores."
Yeah, they just have school and chores, and he's like, because he's walking around, everyone's like, you should be ashamed of yourself in those loud clothes, because they're all like
Yeah,
Puritan clothes, and he's like, oh, I'm just here to give away toys. They're like, toys, and they run away.
yeah.
And so he gives the kids toys, and we get the song. This is the song. This song did not age well.
No, it's
The
weird.
if you sit on my lap today, a kiss, a toy is the price you pay. It's like the song's trying to say is like, you give a little love and you get love back.
Yeah, it doesn't age well because it's like,
He's saying kiss me and I'm gonna give you a toy. Sit on my lap and kiss me, and you're like,
yeah, like it's one of those things that's like it is innocent in this context, but like that would never be aptly applied in the real world.
yeah, and
So yeah,
it's just, I mean, sitting on laps is something that has already sometimes feels weird to a more modern
yeah,
audience, like sitting on Santa's lap. And so I think the parts of this movie that can feel weirder are the parts that are related to just like, it's a weird thing about Santa. So they can't just not
yeah.
put it in.
It's yeah, and I bet you this song would be edited out or revised
Yeah.
if it was re-released on TV, which I imagine it probably will be shown on TV again, right?
It's still, I think it's shown on TV. I don't think it ever
Yeah.
stopped.
So I wonder how they handle it, or if they're just like, oh, the past.
Yeah. They're giving out toys in the school marm. They are very Harold Hill and Marion the Librarian. They just dropped them in. Because she shows up and she's all buttoned up and she's like, toys are frivolous. And he's like, he has this ability, which they don't explain, but I kind of like, where he just knows what toy
It's
people need.
whimsical. I
Yeah.
don't need an answer. It's
Because
just like,
it relates to, he's a very empathetic, caring person,
yes.
and that he knows, oh, this is what you need. And he gives her this doll, and she's like, oh, always wanted this doll, but my parents said it was silly. And she's like, oh, maybe toys
Thank
aren't so
you.
bad. Thank
She's like,
you.
thank you.
And she's like, okay, I'm gonna see things a new way. It's a TV special. Character
Yeah.
arcs are a little faster, but the government is not happy with the toys, and they're gonna try and arrest the kids. And he's like, well, I gave them the toys, and he's like, we're gonna arrest you.
He's like,
Uh,
not so fast.
and he sneaks off, and they won't find him in the woods. But he goes back to the mountain, and the Winter Warlock is like, I told you to get out of my swamp. And he has his friends Willy Willow and Peter Pine
Yeah.
grab him, and he's like, you're mine. And he's like, oh, and it's because it's commercial break time.
Yeah.
And then he's like, but Kris Kringle is like, hey, what if I gave you a toy? He's like, really?
The toy.
He's like, no tricks. No one's ever given me a toy. And he's like, yeah, no, here. And he's like, he gives him what he calls a choo-choo.
Uh-huh.
And it melts his heart. It does an
Yeah.
Anna and Elsa. He told, like, his whole icy exterior melts away, and he's just like a wizard in a long
Hmm.
robe.
See, this ginger was not out to get him
No.
like the ginger in Frozen.
And so he's like, oh, and he's like, well, I'm a wicked creature to my core. How can I be good now? And he's like, it's easy to go from bad to good. And you're like,
You just
ah.
walk.
And then he says one
I
foot
mean,
in front of the other. It's a shout to the Jordan Sparks Step at a Time song.
yes,
Yeah,
famously.
famously.
Um, I also like this song and its message is because it's saying being nice is really easy, actually.
Yeah, it's
Um,
like just you do it, and it acknowledges that it takes work, and you just kind of do it step at a time. Like it's
yeah,
not like a. He's
but it's
like
not
he
like
says, "Oh, it's
super
my."
complicated.
Yeah, he's like, "It's my choice, it's my election, whether I'm good or bad."
Yep,
And
exactly.
we also used to sing this song a lot, and we thought it was funny because he couldn't walk, and we're like, because he just teleports everywhere in his
Yeah.
snow.
I mean, hey, you know,
And he's like, "Oh, I can help you," and he shows him how to use snowball to see
make a crystal ball,
crystal
yeah.
ball. So this is where we get the surveillance aspect of Santa.
Which like I think they play it like they play off of the song,
Yeah,
and it's cute in this context, but then like when you think about like Santa as like a being, it's like he's like God watching,
yeah,
you know, and it's like creepy.
yeah.
But in this it's like it's cutesy, you
Yeah,
know.
and again, it's part of Santa's lore, so they can't just not include it. So I feel like they found a way
And
to,
it's them playing on the lyrics. Like they do that
yeah,
in Rudolph and it's not as successful like the reindeer games thing.
yeah,
But in this, like it works.
yeah. He's sees that Jessica's looking for him, and he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Hey," and she's like, "The kids."
Doesn't he teleport Kringle to her, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh,
Oh,
I
and then the wizard is like, please call me
Winter."
Winter instead of Mr. Warlock. And then no one does. He
Yeah,
has to keep saying it. I was like, okay, guys, he's trying. Can you just like
you lived with
appease
him
him
for
a little
years
bit?
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he is she's like, "Oh, I have all these letters from all the kids about what they want." And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"Okay, let's make it happen." So he's
So
like, "Have them leave their doors unlocked." So he sneaks in at night, gives them toys. But then the Burgermeister sees all the toys and is like, "What?"
mm-hmm.
And he sits on a soldier and hurts his little fat ass. And he's not that there's anything wrong with being demi thick, but and there is something wrong with having a dumbass attitude. Uh, and he's like, we're gonna take all the toys, we're gonna burn them again, and we're gonna search everyone's house. So anyone who has any toys will
Be
be
punished.
punished. And so that's where he's like, oh, we can put them in their stockings because the
Stockings.
kids' chores
Always
are their
hang
one
their
thing.
stockings by the fire. It's gonna look natural.
And because yeah, this family is getting searched, like Nazis are searching for Jews in their house.
Yeah.
And they don't find any toys and they leave. They're like, oh, good thing there were no toys. And the kids are like, psych, they're in here. And he starts going down the chimneys because they lock all the doors. And there's this one girl who's sick, basically implied that she's dying. And he's like, I'm gonna
Mm,
be her make a wish. I have to get her this toy.
right.
And he goes in the chimney to find a way. So it's just kind of like a series of like why how he ended up doing these certain things to get around the
Yeah.
laws. And I love that like the government is just unjust. It's
He's a
just going,
rebel with a cause.
yeah. And he's like, because he says kids deserve more than just school and chores. Kids
Yeah.
should get to play. He knows that children need well-rounded development.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
The Montessori, if you will.
So he's trying to get around it, but eventually they figure it out. They capture him because they capture Topper, and then he's like, oh, because the Kringles had built a shop in Winter's
Castle.
castle. Because Winter
Mm-hmm.
is losing his magic though. He's
Yeah.
been disenchanted. Because when they capture Chris, Jessica's like, oh my gosh, we need to help him. And then the Warlock and that Pringles get arrested because the Warlock doesn't have any more magic.
Yeah.
Which I'm guessing because he was like in Dungeons and Dragons, a Warlock is a patron. And like whatever evil ice deity or devil he
Oh.
served was like, I'm here to help you bring kids toys.
That's interesting. I thought it was because he was giving Kris Kringle all his magic to do his thing,
Oh,
but I was like, that's kind of like off screen type thing. But this
yeah.
makes sense too.
So they're arrested, and then she's like, "Let me go to the warlock and see what he has." And he's like, "I
Mhm.
have some candle stubs, a potion." He basically has a Bath and Body Works in his robe. Uh, but he's like, and some magic feed corn. It just makes reindeer fly. And she's like, oh, magic feed corn. So she goes because the animals have been delivering the letters, and because
Hmm.
they're his friends, and she goes to the reindeer and she has them eat.
And they start flying.
And that doesn't really explain how you get them out of the cell. But
I figured
maybe they were
they.
on their walk, like where they like you get to walk around the courtyard once, and
Oh,
the reindeer
see,
fly in, they jump on, they fly out.
I assumed it was a little more metal than that. After witnessing Hermie pull out the snow monster's teeth,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, maybe they put some chains up against the bars, and then the reindeer mush and break the bars.
Oh.
But again, that's very off screen. That's just like my head
Your
canon.
headcanon. My Singles Hometown headcanon. So they escape. Oh, I almost skipped over. So Jessica, when she finds out Kris Kringle is
Her
captured,
song.
she's like, "Oh,
You almost edited
I,
it out of oh.
I'm just canceling myself today." So she sings this song where she's like, "My world is beginning to change," and there's like all these psychedelic imagery, and she's like, the birds are flying around, and she lets her hair down, and she's
Yeah.
having a moment. Uh, it slaps though. I do like it.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Uh,
It's
yeah, Mrs. Claus gets a moment where she's like, "This is what
future Mrs. Claus.
future. This is my what's gonna be my life." And so they
Yeah.
escape, and they're on the run from the law, and they get married on Christmas Eve.
Well, before that, because you can see behind Cullen, he has a beard. There's like a wanted poster, and it's got his
Oh
like
yeah,
baby face, and then he grows a beard. And it's like it makes sense because I'm a Kringle after all. And they all go ha 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 because it's funny. But I do
funny.
not like that it's a beard without a mustache.
Oh yeah,
I don't care for that. But he grows a mustache eventually.
yeah. So they get married on Christmas Eve
The
in
holiest night.
the holiest night in the trees. They decorate them. The
This
animals
one
are
is
there.
very Jesus, pro Jesus.
Yes. Rudolph
Mm-hmm.
does not acknowledge. But I guess
Jesus
if
at
you're going
all.
the origin of Santa and Christmas, it's like you gotta.
I guess, but he's
Yeah.
not a saint in this,
No,
really. Like,
he's with elves. Yeah.
yeah. So I think it's probably a culture shift.
Yeah, I think it's
Because
the
it's the
culture at this time.
70s,
Yeah.
it's about to be the 70s.
Yeah. I think because some people might be like, well, he's supposed to be a saint. So they're kind of like, oh, well,
Yeah.
he's like a non-denominational Christian saint. Because they have an outdoor wedding with no vows. Noticeably, the warlock does not officiate,
Mm.
nor Tanta. None of the pagan religious figures in their life. But they stand before the Lord and they put their gifts to each other under the tree, and it's decorated. And there's a little song that I never remembered it happens as they give gifts, and the warlock is like, "Can I just have a little bit of magic?" And his ice deity patron is like, "I'll make the tree sparkle." And they're married. She's Mrs. Claus.
Yeah,
But
because he was like, oh, I'm a Kringle. And they're like, well, you need to change your name too to match your disguise. Here's the tag that came on your
yeah,
baby nap thing.
and I also like they never explain what's going on with his mother. Like she was a teen mom in Sombertown. That cannot have been easy.
Probably, yep.
Basing on their reaction to toys.
God, couldn't even imagine.
So they are still on the run from the law like Robin Hood. They build a base of operations in the North Pole. That penguin is opposite of where he's trying to go.
But you know what? It's the same,
Yeah,
right?
they build a castle. It's the same. Yeah. Yeah, we should point out there was a brief image of indigenous people in Rudolph being blown by the storm. I always thought they were toys as a kid, and then I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be
There
people
was at the
in the
beginning.
igloo when everything's blowing away in the intense storm?
Oh, I did not
Yeah,
remember that. Okay.
I'm always like, oh yeah, that. But anyway, so they're in the North Pole. They're gonna build a castle, their workshop. Their operation grows. He checks who's naughty and nice. So at one point, he's like, when he's younger, he's like, oh, no, they're all mostly nice.
Yeah, I
He's
think
not
even
real.
in this one, he's still kind of like, I have this list, but I think they were all pretty good this year.
Yeah.
His standards haven't really been refined yet.
No,
There's
he's
there's
like,
no set rubric.
yeah, it's more just like it's about, hey, because he says you better not cry, don't pout. It's about encouraging good behavior. But I think they didn't want him to come across as too moralistic, like a Willy
Right,
Wonka-esque figure punishing
right.
people who like gum. Timothy Chalamet will be torturing a girl who likes gum. So they are giving out toys, but they deliver all the animals keep bringing more and more letters. And it's like we can't keep doing this all the time. They're getting older. And then they
Yeah, it's like
say,
I can't do this all like every month or every other week or whatever.
he
Let's
was,
just pick a day.
yeah, and they're like, oh, why not Christmas Eve, the holiest night of the year, in honor of peace on earth and goodwill towards men, where they
Mm-hmm.
share gifts. And they're like, oh, he was a good man. Is that why they call him Santa? And they don't really explain like saint, like they don't want get into that, but they're just like, yeah, he's a good
Exactly.
man.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of that's the story. The warlock still has some magic though, so he's gonna make a white Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I do love that the warlock is just, they're like, yeah, Santa has a warlock friend. Like, I know that's never in anything else, but that's just a thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's his pal.
Yeah.
Um, he and Mrs. Claus went white haired, little plump. They're
Yeah.
cute.
I like the warlock's arc of redemption arc, which again, it's a short special. He
Mm-hmm.
just, but like it makes way more sense than the snowman monster. The snow monster.
Yes. Yeah, because the
Uh
snow monster didn't have a choice. It had its teeth ripped out.
yeah. So it's trying to
So
adapt. It's like, how else am I gonna get food unless serving the dictatorship of Christmas Town? Uh,
exactly.
but the warlock is genuinely touched, and like it makes sense because like even Rudolph decides I'm gonna go home and face my problems, not because of any event, but just because he got older.
Yeah, he sort of like realized like, oh, I can't keep running. But yeah, this actually like connects the sort of wholesomeness of the winter
Yeah,
holidays, the gift giving, the being, generous to
yeah,
others to the story and to these people's arcs. Like same thing with Jessica. With Jessica,
yeah.
the warlock, and then
He
the
gives a yo-yo to the
Meisterburger.
Meisterburger.
Yeah, and he's like happy for a second, and then he like suddenly realizes like, no, I have to be this thing. And
Yeah,
but eventually like they die off, like that idea dies off, and
yeah.
so Somber Town is just like
Yeah,
fine, I
they're like
guess.
he's no longer an outlaw. The people, the basically the burger line died out, and everyone was like, "We don't give a shit about these rules." They're like, "We love
Yeah,
Santa." They like throw away his portrait and
exactly.
put Santa up.
Yeah.
Uh, which I love that the Burgermeister has no redemption. I love that the
Yeah.
evil government didn't learn. Oh, we just need to be nice and not be evil. It's like no, they're evil, corrupt,
No,
puritanical government.
the people decided what
Yeah,
they wanted. Yeah.
yeah, and that like that like a practitioner of the dark arts is more reachable than someone who is like self-centered and cold-hearted in like a more socially acceptable way,
Yeah.
like a someone in power, which is oddly
Mm-hmm.
enough a very Christian, like very like Jesus
Yeah.
message of like who Jesus spent time talking to and who he seemed to impact. So
Yeah.
interesting, yeah, yeah, he's gets no redemption. He dies and people shit on his legacy. That's his story.
Good.
Yeah, and Santa is still an icon. And they say some people still hate Santa today because they're like, all this hustle and bustle. I think we should cancel Christmas or all the
Mm-hmm.
suffering in the world. Though I noticed the person talking about suffering was in front of a factory, and I'm like, interesting. The
Hmm.
Burgermeister does call Santa a nonconformist at one point when he's like arresting him.
Yes.
So there's these movies have a oddly like progressive message at times. In Rudolph, it
Yeah.
kind of turns back around and like everything goes
But
back
in
to how
this
it
one,
should be.
it's pretty, it stays. Like,
Yeah, be kind, be loving, be yourself, like you don't conform, like whimsy
mm-hmm.
and wonder. And then the guy's like, "Yep, so that's all the stuff you want to know about Santa," and they just think Santa Claus is coming to town.
Yep.
Uh,
So, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, we still need Santa. Isn't it good to celebrate giving? And even if it doesn't fix all the world's unhappiness, isn't a little smile on Christmas morning worth it?
Right.
And because there's a lyric in Silver and Gold that implies that like that you need the tree decorations to be happy.
Right.
And there's whereas this is like, no, it's just like it's a nice like that little moment. It's just a nice in like in a world of so much misery, just a morning where we can all be happy. You know, like it
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is because this was not their first. I think Rudolph was one of their first ones, if not their first.
Yeah. It I mean, animation style and especially story, it came a long way.
Yeah,
Like this one is definitely like you can actually follow it and you're like, yeah, this makes
it
sense. This
tracks.
conclusion makes sense. Yes,
Yeah,
it's quick because it's only 60 minutes or less than 60 minutes. Uh, but it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But Rudolph was like, ooh, like,
yeah,
ooh, yeah. But I mean, I don't know, like I still enjoyed myself watching them because it was weird because I haven't seen them in so long, but there was actually sort of this nostalgic comfort for me.
yeah,
And yeah, like it was kind of like warm and fuzzy. And seeing the commercials was kind of whimsical too, because it's like relics from a bygone era. And
yeah. And
yeah,
the music is good. Not like
yeah.
oh, play this banger in the club, but like I mean, hey, maybe we'll dance to "Tour Makers of the King" in the club, but like it's just
Remix.
the songs are all like yeah, these are fun. They're very short. They get the message across.
Yeah.
Uh,
And
so
the voice performances in Rudolph, there's like a lot of dynamic stuff too with like
yeah.
Rudolph and Hermie, and then
Mhm.
also like the head elf. There's like some dynamic stuff happening there. But I think the performances in Santa Claus is Coming to Town is like
Yeah,
it's pretty top notch. I actually I thought that the snowman was a really great narrator. I did not care for Fred Astaire.
really. I
I
liked
don't
his
know. I
voice. I
felt
didn't like it. I get what you mean about his figure.
well, I know I also like I didn't care so much about his performance either. I
Hmm.
thought it was more flat. Um, but I like the addition of the kids.
Yeah.
But I thought like the snowman was a lot more charming.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
there's a reason he's in the Elf.
exactly, yeah.
Okay. We did root for a protagonist and antagonist, or
Um, yeah, I mean
I
for
rooted
our
for Santa.
protagonist. Yeah, I rooted for Chris Kringle
I
because he
rooted.
was very pure of heart.
Yeah, I just wanted to. She was
I was
generous and loving.
I rooted for Rudolph except he wanted to fit in, but I'm like, why fit in here? You know,
Yeah.
go find somewhere
I just
else.
wanted this child to stop being bullied. I
Yeah,
think.
same thing with Hermie. I just don't want him to be bullied. I don't want him to be in a toxic work environment.
And I think the thing is the antagonist in Rudolph, I feel like is allegedly supposed to be the snow monster, but it feels
It's
like
his
it's
dad and
Santa.
Santa.
Yeah, it's the patriarchy of
And it's
Christmas Town.
actually it's the people of Christmas Town, it's Santa, their leader, and then his dad.
Yeah, and an emphasis on the male leaders though. Like the
Yes.
coach, the elf leader,
Well, I mean, it's because he's not performing their version of
masculinity.
masculinity. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why it's like
So,
this movie is so strangely queer coded in a very
yeah.
obvious way. And then
The
the
antagonist,
the
the
Burgermeister.
Burgermeister, I think he's effective. And
Yeah.
again, I think we already talked about it that like his lack of an arc is actually good. I think like
It's what keeps it from because at one point I was like, wow, this is just really kind of sweet and touching in a way I didn't
it
expect
keeps it
this
from being
special.
too
But
cheesy.
yes, it keeps from being too like everyone just loves each other and it's fine. It's like some people are not gonna get it. They're
Yep.
not.
And then they're gonna die off.
Yeah, like it's just like, okay, I think it's not every villain needs redemption or like a violent death, you know? Like
Right.
this
Yeah.
reminds me kind of when Cinderella ends, like the stepmother is just eventually irrelevant.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter to her now that she no longer has to deal with this woman's bullshit. And she's like, we don't
Yeah.
care what happens. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I guess the question is, were they your fantasy?
I'm gonna say yes, even to both, because it was fun to nitpick at Rudolph. But there is something cozy about it It's, nostalgia from having watched it as a kid. And I think my mom grew up with these, so I also think that like that was passed on to
The
me when I was.
generational aspect.
Yeah, there is actually something very interesting about watching the special and watching it with the commercials, being like, my mom watched this.
Yeah.
Like I'm having an experience that my mom had, which was kind of cool. Yeah, so I would say yes for both. I would put this on while I'm wrapping presents, would not do the same for A Night Before Christmas.
I'm gonna say it's my fantasy. Definitely, obviously, I like Santa Claus Coming to Town more, and I think
Yeah.
if I had to think like which one would you show your kids, I would probably show them Santa Claus Coming to Town. I think if I
Yeah.
had kids, I think they would probably
And then
ask to see
prepare them
Rudolph.
for Rudolph and be like, listen, I want you to know
This isn't the real
that
Santa.
this is not how dentists work, okay?
Yeah,
They don't just pull out your teeth willy-nilly.
yeah. I think because I think Rudolph is one kids are more likely to also be like, oh, I want to see Rudolph.
Right.
But I
Because it's
think,
like an animal.
yeah. I mean, maybe it's just because my siblings were like kind of scared of Santa.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, they're like, who's this big loud man?
Yeah,
Yeah, but I think Santa Claus Coming to Town is to me like a better Christmas special.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is
Rankin and
Rankin
Bass.
and Bass holiday specials, Christmas specials. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy whatever you celebrate, and thank you for joining us for this wild year, our first full
Yeah.
year of the pod.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been crazy, lots of ups and downs. But we got to do a lot of like interesting content, non-movie content and then movie content again. I guess do we want to talk a little bit about what next year's going to look like?
Next year, we're talking about more episodes per month, maybe weekly.
We're also going to be releasing stuff that we recorded this year that was supposed to come out. So Cinderella series. Can we release?
Coming.
It's happening.
It's happening. Greek mythology month. We'll
finish
that
it up
in January.
Yeah.
I think we're doing in February. So yeah, we're announcing our first 3 themes. So if Cinderella series is in March, what are we doing for love season in February?
Oh my goodness, we are doing Supernatural Romance Month. Cannot wait. Specific movies, we've kind of nailed them down, but we don't want to release them just yet.
Yeah.
But it is going to be a super fun theme. And yeah, January is going to be wrapping up Greek mythology month.
Yeah.
Went from one J month to another.
Yes.
But yeah, so we'll finally get to talk about Percy Jackson, and we'll be talking. So it's an episode we recorded months ago.
Yeah.
That will be coming out around the time that the new series has come out. We probably aren't going to talk about the series in depth, but if you do want to hear us talk about it, let us know, and maybe we can pop it in our second episode in January, just like a quick little tidbit being like, yes, we watched it. Here are some quick thoughts. So if you want to hear that, please let us know. If you would like to follow us, you can get us on Instagram and TikTok at Not My Fantasy Pod. If you're on YouTube, hi, hello, please
smash that like button.
Smash the like button, hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel, and let us know, have you seen these movies before?
Yes.
And
which Santa do you prefer?
Well, yeah, there you go. Which Santa is the real Santa?
And do you agree with our theory?
That Rudolph's Santa killed Kris Kringle.
Yeah.
And became a fascist dictator. Also, just really quick, I don't know if we posted it on Instagram, but Spotify top, we were a top podcast for a couple people. Shout out to you guys. You know who you are.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you
appreciate
for listening.
You. Yeah, we're a new podcast, so like any listeners we're proud of. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
For listening.
And we look forward to another year of content, getting to talk more about movies and lore, and we hope to hear more from you guys, the listeners. But yeah, no matter where you're listening, give us a 5-star review. Tell your friends and family about us, especially over the holidays. Be like, oh my god, they just talked about Rankin and Bass. You guys remember those movies? They're crazy. You have to listen to these people talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely share us around. 5-star review. we appreciate you guys.
Yeah. We appreciate
Yay.
you.
All
Bye.
right.
Happy
Bye,
holidays.
listeners.